So I made a comparison of the FGC-6 and the R-6 about the bolt weights. With my new testing, I figured out that it doesn't really matter if you add some extra weight to the bolts. It doesn't really affect the lower end of the PSI rating in regards to cycling, only that it gets really slow when it's really heavy. When it is a really heavy bolt, it gets really slow. Does it really feel great? It will be really a slow rate of fire, so it takes a long time for you that you can take another shot if it is on semi-automatic. So that's something to do keep in mind. So it's probably better suited with use with CO2 magazines or with a higher pressure gas, or let's say when it's the temperature is hotter, not in winter time, let's say. But besides that, I did not notice that on bolts without added weights would cycle better at a lower pressure. Because it's really the hammer that's the issue with pressing it down at a lower pressure. There are a few things you have to keep in mind when you really want to have let's say a replica that gives some kick. Only the FGC-6 and Mark II can really go with quite some heavy bolt weights. If you go for the Mark I, then it's limited. You can get some good weight in it if you want, but then you have to refer to tungsten weights and not metal weights, otherwise you're limited to a certain size, so do keep that in mind. The testing you see here is on a Mark II, but I've made notes on the screen that you can see when I use a weight that is no longer compatible with the Mark II. This is done with metal weights, so if you would go with tungsten weights and you don't exceed the length of the certain that you can find in the build manual, then you can go higher, but if you want to keep it reasonable with the price, then still you want to go with probably, then the Mark II is better. Also, one downside with FGC-6 models is that you cannot use this with full automatic models, so not as SF models. So do keep that in mind. Also, the bolt travel of the FGC-6 is shorter than the one with the R-6. I think that's also the main factor that I kind of like the R-6 a lot more. When I shoot it with weights, it feels nicer. But adding weights to the bolt does give you a little bit more impulse. You don't really see it, but you do feel it. And there's probably a thing that you can go overboard with it, that it is not really necessarily better. But at the same time, so long the pressure is high, it usually is kind of okay to use. But you will probably notice, especially when I was testing the lower pressure range, then you really notice like, nah, this doesn't really feel great anymore. It's really slow, and yeah, it doesn't really feel nice. The movement is a little bit too slow. Do also keep in mind that the cycle distance of the bolt will also affect the rounds per minute. But at the same time, also the bolt spring and bolt weight will affect it. But if you make your R-6 a short cycle bolt, then of course the rate of fire will go up. And you can in a way get a little bit the same cycling as with the FGC-6. Do keep in mind that this testing is all done for a BL or H model. The FA model will have a different weight spec altogether because it got more space in the bolt to add some extra weights. But this is all for a hammer fight model. Also, one thing to keep in mind why you don't see a Partisan 6 model is because those models cannot have any bolt weights in the bolt. So the best that you can do is print the bolt solid, so it gets the most mesh you can kind of give it. and that's all you can do with that model basically. And with select file model you can add some anti-bound weights in there, but it is not much. It's quite a relatively lightweight bolt. The R-6 does have its limits with how much weight you can add, because when you see me using the higher weight category, let's say, of the R-6, that's already with tungsten weights added to it, and in a way maxed out. There are some stock options you can add a little bit more to it, but it is basically a maxed out setup. And with the FGC-6, technically you can add more weight to it, but I don't think, unless you use it with CO2 or something like that, that it is really great to go above that. But you can see it can be done.